Hello, I'm a day late with a review of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, Black Panther. I'll admit, I was pretty hyped. Ever since the late 70s, I've thought the character looked cool and mysterious in the comics. And since I didn't follow the character very closely in the comics, I had the added benefit of being devoid of his backstory, which would no doubt be changed for the MCU. The trailer looked pretty good, and the reviews were very positive, so I was looking forward to it. In the end, however, it's not an awful movie, but I was disappointed by it. So, the story is about two cousins who don't know each other and are destined to become enemies. One is T'Challa, son of King T'Chaka, and he was raised in Wakanda to become the future king. The other is Eric Stevens, son of N'Jobu, the brother of King T'Chaka, who was sent to observe the outside world and report back to Wakanda. While on assignment, N'Jobu fell in love with an American woman, and they had a child together. Disgusted by the living conditions of American blacks in Oakland, California, N'Jobu decided to begin organizing sales of black resistance/supremacism. And to fund this operation, N'Jobu has given Ulysses Claus information on how to sneak into Wakanda and steal vibranium. To help with his escape, Claus set off a bomb along the Wakandan border that killed multiple people, including the parents of T'Challa's friend W'Kabi. First crimes against Wakanda, N'Jobu was to return to Wakanda to face the council and their justice. Instead, he drew a gun on T'Chaka, who ended up killing him, thus leaving Eric to be raised by his mother alone in Oakland. Wakanda and Oakland, two very different environments to grow up during your formative years, leading to two very different people. And while I know that N'Jobu was killed to give motivation for Eric's desire for revenge, I can't help but wonder if it was done to comment on the importance of a father figure for younger boys. Jump forward to the present day, which was 2018-ish, at least that was when the film was released anyways, and we have T'Challa arriving back to Wakanda after traveling to Europe for the Sokovia Accords, which resulted in the assassination of King T'Chaka. T'Challa has come to observe the ritual announcement of his ascendancy to king with the approval of the four clans. But first he has to pull his wished-for girlfriend, Nakia, out of a mission she has been assigned to by King T'Chaka. It's here we see the famous scene where he crosses his arms and is ejected into a freefall scene in all the trailers. It's from an impressive height, so how does he survive the fall? Unlike Iron Man, his suit isn't shown to have repulsors, so he can't fly or slow his fall. And unlike Captain America, he isn't falling into the relative softness of the ocean. You might think, as it's later explained, that his suit is made of vibranium and absorbs the energy from the impact. Then how do you explain this? Here you can clearly see T'Challa kicking a Black Panther suit and it flying away from the kick. So clearly the user of the suit is not immune to the effects of kinetic energy. Maybe it was the increased strength and the resiliency he received by taking the hard herb extract. Here in Civil War we see T'Chaka die from an explosion that T'Challa was closer to, and yet T'Chaka was the acting Black Panther at the time. So why didn't we see T'Chaka survive the blast when T'Challa, a normal human being at the time, did? And then there's the scene with him taking out the slavers. I was hoping for a Dark Knight or Predator-esque like scene where the unknown threat takes out the slavers one by one. Maybe have them whisper to each other about the legends of the demon Black Panther that feeds on humans at night. And after half of them are taken out, the others say, "The heck with this," and flee. Oh well. He takes out the slaver, and then he tells his hoped-for girlfriend that his father is dead and that he will be crowned king tomorrow. They then wish the girls the best of luck and abandon them to their own devices because it would be too much trouble to return them to wherever they were kidnapped from. No biggie though. I mean, what's the worst that could happen to a group of young girls left to their own devices in the middle of a jungle? Next we cut to London where we find Eric looking at an African exhibit at a museum. Unknown to the museum, one of the items is actually Wakandan and made of vibranium. No idea how he knows this, but he does. His girlfriend drugged the curators a coffee and she becomes sick. An ambulance crew arrives in seconds and it's Claw. He's here for the vibranium. They kill the guards, grab the vibranium, and leave. Then back to Wakanda where it's a challenge day and many representatives from the four tribes are gathered to either challenge T'Challa or approve of his becoming king. The four tribes agree to his coronation when the forgotten fifth tribe shows up to challenge his claim. M'Baku is the leader of the fifth tribe and he says that they have been watching from the mountain and his tribe doesn't approve of T'Challa's sister Shuri running the technological center because she is a disrespectful child or of T'Challa's claim to be a king since he couldn't protect his father even though T'Challa wasn't the Black Panther at the time. So we get a pretty good fight scene in which M'Baku whips T'Challa pretty soundly until T'Challa hears his loved ones cheering him on.
Show him who you are! You can do this, T'Challa! You can do it!
T'Challa gets his second wind and then beats M'Baku. Then they go to a ceremonial chamber where T'Challa will drink the heart-shaped herb extract and be buried in sand so he can receive the powers of the Black Panther and have a vision of his father. In the vision, he asks his father how he will best protect Wakanda and be a good king. His father tells him to surround himself with people he trusts and that he is a good man with a good heart and that it is hard for a good man to be king. He then wakes and tells Zuri that he saw his father. Next we see T'Challa is walking the streets of the city with Nakia asking her to stay. But she's been bitten by the something's gotta be done bug and says that she has to help the impoverished rest of the world. He asks her what she thinks Wakanda should do, and this leads to the central theme of the movie. What is Wakanda's role going to be in this rapidly shrinking world? Nakia wants Wakanda to share its wealth and technology to help make the world a better place. T'Challa is worried that Wakanda will lose its way of life if it opens up to the rest of the world, but Nakia is convinced that Wakanda is strong enough to protect itself and help the rest of the world too. Then we cut to T'Challa visiting W'Kabi in one of the border villages. They discuss Nakia's idea of opening up Wakanda to the rest of the world. W'Kabi is not a fan of the idea, although he says that if T'Challa wanted to send troops out to remake the world in Wakanda's image, he would be cool with it. Okoye then calls saying that they have gotten word of Claw's location. W'Kabi is very jazzed to hear the news as he wants Claw dead for the murders of his parents. T'Challa vows to bring Claw back to face Wakandan justice. We get a quick James Bond / Q scene in which Shuri shows off some of the new tech she has developed for T'Challa. And then we're off to Korea. T'Challa, Nakia, and Okoye arrive at the nightclub where they discover that Claw's buyer is Agent Ross from the CIA. T'Challa and Ross exchange words over who's going to get Claw. Claw shows up and heads over to Ross to make a deal. Before the deal can be completed, Okoye gets made by one of Claw's men and chaos ensues. The Wakandans make quick work of Claw's goons, and T'Challa almost gets Claw when Claw brings his sonic arm to bear.
You look just like your old man.
He and his goons then bail and we get a car chase. The chase is okay, at least until Okoye decides to get out of her car and throw a spear at the car she is pursuing. Let us remember that she does not have super strength and yet somehow manages to throw a spear faster than a car traveling at high speed. And don't get me started on this silliness. And I'm still trying to figure out how Claw's sonic arm could destroy T'Challa's car, and yet his Black Panther suit, which is no doubt thinner, manages to survive this without a problem. T'Challa is about to kill Claw when Ross, Nakia, and Okoye show up and point out to T'Challa that they are in public and people are recording what's going on with their cell phones. He agrees to move Claw to a CIA safe house nearby. Once at the safe house, they talk about what they're going to do with Claw. Ross says Claw that he is in his custody now, and T'Challa says that Ross can question him, but after that he's taking Claw back to Wakanda. Ross goes to question Claw, and Claw tells him that Wakanda is no third world hellhole, that is rich with technology and vibranium. Ross isn't so sure about that and goes back to talk to T'Challa. Claw's gang shows up and they blow a hole in the back wall and grab Claw. Ross is injured while trying to protect Nakia. T'Challa tries to get to them, but Eric shoots T'Challa with a grenade, jumps onto the truck, and leaves before T'Challa can recover. However, T'Challa sees a royal ring hanging from a necklace around Eric's neck before they drive off. He goes back into the CIA safe house to discover that Ross has been shot in his spine. Nakia thinks that Ross won't make it in CIA hands due to the injury. T'Challa has Nakia give him one of her beads, and he places it into Ross's wound and tells the CIA personnel to let them take Ross and that they will save his life. And so we're back to Wakanda. Okoye voices her concern for bringing a foreign intelligence officer to Wakanda, as it will be his duty to report what he sees there and that Wakanda has survived by hiding its technology and resources from the rest of the world. T'Challa can't let an ally suffer or die if there is anything that can be done about it. So we return to Wakanda and we get this.
Great, another broken white boy for us to fix. This is going to be fun.
Wow, this is just like watching Trauma, Life in the ER. W'Kabi then shows up, eager for Claw's blood. T'Challa tells him that Claw got away, and W'Kabi says that T'Challa is a do-nothing king like his father. And rather than explain that Claw was rescued by someone wearing a Wakandan ring and that he still intends to track Claw down, he lets W'Kabi wander off to sulk and fester in his disappointment, setting up a motivation for W'Kabi's later betrayal. Then we cut back to see Claw and his gang getting ready to catch a flight back to their home base when Eric kills one of the other gang members and tries to kill Claw. Claw uses the female that Eric is involved with as a shield, but Eric shoots her and chases after Claw, who runs and hides. Eric finds him and manages to shoot Claw, and then the two talk. Claw says Eric is crazy to want to go to Wakanda, that they don't tolerate foreigners there. Eric shows Claw the inner lip tattoo that he has, even though he wasn't born in Wakanda. Perhaps his father gave it to him before he died. Who knows? He then kills Claw. Back in Wakanda, T'Challa goes to see Zuri in the Herb Temple to ask what he knows about N'Jobu. Zuri reluctantly tells the story of N'Jobu going to America and becoming radicalized. He tells T'Challa that N'Jobu's son was left behind. T'Challa is stunned to hear the story and can't believe they left the child to be raised alone by his mother. Eric arrives at the border of Wakanda, where he is met by W'Kabi. W'Kabi asks what does he want, and Eric says that he has brought a gift. He then unwraps his package and shows that he has killed Claw. Down in Shuri's lab, Ross wakes up and we get this.
Alright, where am I?
Don't scare me like that, colonizer.
Martin Luther King Jr. wept. What sort of racist BS is this? And what a great way to introduce yourself, Shuri. First, here's a map of Africa and the countries that have colonized it. I don't see America on there anywhere. Second, Wakanda has never been colonized after it became Wakanda, at least according to the fictional universe that this exists in. And third, you should think that Wakanda's premier scientist would be aware of the fact that the prevailing theory of the origin of human life on Earth is that it began in Africa and migrated outwards, making Africans the original colonizers. And if you consider where Wakanda is placed in Africa according to this image from Captain America Civil War, it looks as if Wakanda could very well be the birthplace of humankind. This means that Wakandans are the original colonizers. Ugh. Anyways, Ross is amazed to discover that it has only been a day since he was shot, and he is now healed. Shuri reassures him that it isn't magic at all, and is all...
I like science.
He then looks out the window to see the Wakandan vibranium mining operation. Okoye calls, looking for T'Challa. She tells Shuri that Eric has arrived at the border and has claimed to have killed Claw. She then transmits an image of Eric, and Ross tells her that Eric is a CIA asset. Then we cut to T'Challa moping in the countryside with Nakia about how his father killed his brother and left the child behind. Nakia tells him that we are not guilty of the sins of our fathers and that he has a free choice of how to be king. Shuri then calls and tells him that he needs to get back ASAP. Which begs the question, since T'Challa had a communication bead with him, why didn't Okoye call him directly instead of going through Shuri? Presumably so we could have this next scene. We're back to Shuri's lab where Ross is giving the lowdown on Eric. He went to military college, did his grad school training at MIT, and then joined the SEALs, and then went to Afghanistan where he racked up a huge number of kills. So many so that they nicknamed him the Killmonger. He then joined a JSOC ghost unit and was trained in assassination and how to take down governments. So we jump to the council room where the council is trying to figure out if Eric is a Wakandan or not when W'Kabi brings him in. W'Kabi steps to the side and gives T'Challa the stink eye. Eric then boasts that he has killed Claw where T'Challa has failed to do so. T'Challa tells Eric that the only reason he is still alive is because he knows that he is his cousin. T'Challa asks what he wants. Eric says that he wants the throne. The council laughs at him and he replies that life is easy in Wakanda but that blacks worldwide are suffering. He wants to be king of Wakanda so that he can free blacks worldwide. T'Challa tells him that it isn't Wakanda's way to be judge, jury, and executioner to other peoples when Eric says this.
Not wrong. But didn't life start right here on this continent? So ain't all people your people?
It seems oddly familiar. T'Challa says that he isn't the king of all people and that it's his job to keep Wakanda's resources out of the hands of someone like Eric. T'Challa's mom then says that they've heard enough from Eric and to reject his request. Eric replies that he isn't requesting anything and then goes all,
"Now, say my name."
T'Challa waves him off and starts to return to his throne when this guy asks Eric his name. Eric says his Wakandan name and that he is the son of N'Jobu. That T'Chaka killed N'Jobu and that he is issuing a challenge as due his blood right. T'Challa's mom tells him to ignore him as he has no rights when W'Kabi holds up N'Jobu's ring and then hands it to her with a smile on his face.
Gotcha, bitch!
T'Challa sits on his throne and looks at the family ring. Now would actually be a good time to tell everybody present that N'Jobu was a traitor to Wakanda who sold Claw the information on how to get into Wakanda to steal the vibranium. This, of course, led to the death of W'Kabi's parents, but instead, he accepts the challenge. And so... That's right, we get another duel. T'Challa offers one last chance for Eric to change his mind about the challenge, to find some other answer, and Eric replies,
I lived my entire life waiting for this moment. I trained, I lied, I killed, just to get here. I killed in America, Afghanistan, Iraq. I took life from my own brothers and sisters right here on this continent. And all this death, just so I could kill you.
Well, well, well. And here all along he's been proclaiming his altruism and wanting to free blacks around the world, when in fact all he really wants is revenge. And since T'Chaka is dead, T'Challa will just have to do. And once again, this would be a good time for T'Challa, or even Zuri, to chime in and say that N'Jobu wasn't blameless. Nope. T'Challa is going to put Wakanda and the rest of the world at risk because Eric had to grow up in Oakland. So here we go.
It has begun. Let no one interfere.
Ah, Zuri. Maybe he'll save the day.
You can do it!
Well, at least the news can't get any worse, right? Eric says, I'm king now, and the four tribes recognize that with the ceremonial necklace being placed around his neck. Nakia tells Shuri and the former Queen Mother that now would be a good time to get out of Dodge, and they leave down one of the passageways. Later, Nakia meets up with Okoye and says that she should join them in their flight. Okoye says that she is loyal to the throne, no matter who sits on it. So Nakia leaves her and goes to Ross to inform him that now is an especially bad time to be white in Wakanda, and they leave. In the herb temple, Eric is given the extract and buried so he can have a vision of his father. At first he remembers finding his father dead, and then he remembers finding his father's journal about Wakanda. His father appears and says that he left the journal hoping that Eric would find it so that he could go to Wakanda someday. He asks Eric why he isn't crying over him, and Eric replies that Oakland has taught him that everyone dies. N'Jobu says that he should have taken Eric back to Wakanda before he died, that they are both now abandoned. Eric replies that maybe it's Wakanda that is lost. He awakens and asks if this is all the heart-shaped herb in Wakanda. One of the gardeners says yes, and Eric tells her to burn it. She says that if they do so, there will be no more kings, and he chokes her and says he isn't going to ask her twice. They burn the garden, but not before Nakia grabs a bulb of one of the flowers unnoticed. Then we cut to the throne room with King Eric I, and he starts to lay out his plans for Wakanda, much to the council's growing horror. Wakanda is going to arm blacks everywhere and kill everyone that stands in their way, along with their children too. Soon the sun will never set on Wakandan soil. Okoye says that Wakanda has survived in the shadows, and Wakabi says this is true, but the world is getting smaller and he would rather be the conqueror than the conquered. King Eric then commands, "Get to work, people." Cut to the mountains of Wakanda, where we find our refugees heading to the Jabari tribe in order to offer M'Baku the heart-shaped herb extract. Once they arrive there, they make the offer and M'Baku says, "Follow me, I have something to show you." They find T'Challa half buried in the snow, barely hanging on to life. They make the extract and give it to T'Challa and completely cover him in snow. T'Challa has another vision of his father. T'Chaka tells him that it was time to go on with him. T'Challa wants to know why they left Eric in Oakland. T'Chaka says that he chose his people and the safety of Wakanda over the boy, and T'Challa says that he was wrong to turn his back on the rest of the world. T'Challa then says that he can't go on with him, that he has unfinished business in the real world. T'Challa wakes up, much to everyone's relief. They then discuss what Eric's plans are and how to stop him. Shuri shows T'Challa that she managed to grab one of the Black Panther's necklaces before she left. T'Challa then asks M'Baku to join their fight, and M'Baku says no. They're even now, a life for a life, but he won't spill Jabari blood for someone else. Back in lower Wakanda, Eric and Wakabi are overseeing the production and transportation of vibranium weapons to Wakandan agents around the world. Shortly after one of the transports take off, it explodes and crashes. Everyone moves to see what happened when T'Challa climbs out of the wreckage. He tells Eric that the challenge is not over. Okoye is gratified to see that T'Challa is alive, while Wakabi feels a little differently. Eric says, "Sorry, I'm king now," and tells the rest of the people to get transports in the air. He then says to Wakabi, "Take care of T'Challa." Wakabi happily obliges and orders the members of his tribe to attack. Okoye says that Eric is filled with too much hatred to be king. She orders the bulk of the Doro guards to protect T'Challa, while she and a small group attack Eric, who transforms into a supersuit. Wakabi attacks T'Challa, who kicks him away. T'Challa begs Wakabi to call an end to the conflict, and Wakabi pulls out his horn and blows it. In response, several war rhinos answer the call. Meanwhile, Shuri, Nakia, and Ross make their way to Shuri's lab for supplies. Shuri puts some control beads on Ross's arm and a comm device behind his ear so that he can control the royal transport to intercept the transports that are heading out of Wakanda. Okoye and her guards continue their fight with Eric, and he manages to capture one of them and slits her throat just to show that he means business. Nakia and Shuri make it back to the platform, place the remote control device on the royal transport, and tell Ross that he can now pilot it. Ross activates the transport and starts after the other transports. Okoye and her guards get control of Eric, but he uses the energy pulse to send them all flying away. Shuri and Nakia join the fray. The royal transport closes in on other transports, and Ross destroys one, causing the others to turn and attack. Nakia disarms Eric, so he slashes her leg with his claws, and then grabs her and throws her far away. Shuri moves in with her sonic gloves, which seems to be working well, but she moves too close, and Eric damages one of the gloves with his spear and crushes the other in his hand. He throws her to the ground and moves in for the kill. T'Challa sees this and discharges the energy his suit has absorbed, knocking away the border tribesmen, and he launches himself at Eric, knocking them both into the pit of the vibranium mine. They fight all the way down as they fall. It's not the best CGI in Marvel history. T'Challa calls Shuri and tells her to activate a train so the stabilizers will hinder the Black Panther suits. Eric notices it and says he doesn't need a suit to kill T'Challa, and rants about how he's going to kill anyone that wanted to be loyal to T'Challa. Meanwhile, Ross is still dogfighting with the transports when Shuri's lab comes under attack. Shuri tells Ross to get out of there, but Ross continues to remotely pursue the other transports. Back outside, things aren't looking too good for the Dora and Shuri and Nakia. Wakabi issues an ultimatum, but is interrupted by the arrival of the Jabari tribe. Suddenly it's game on again. T'Challa and Eric fight some more and are separated by another train, giving Eric time to collect his spearhead again. Ross manages to take out the other transports before they are able to leave Wakandan airspace. Wakabi then sees M'Baku from atop his war rhino and decides to run him down. At the last minute, Okoye steps between them and the rhino comes to a halt and licks her face. M'Baku leaves to continue the battle while Wakabi faces his love, Okoye. He asks if she would kill him and she replies, "For Wakanda, yes." He then looks at the fighting all around him, drops his weapon, and drops to one knee. Back in the mine, T'Challa and Eric are still fighting, with control of the spear going back and forth between the two. Eric looks to gain the upper hand, but T'Challa sends the spear flying into the air and then rolls the two of them back onto the tracks after a train passes, catching the falling spear and sinks it into Eric's heart just before his costume can fully reform. Eric compliments T'Challa on the move and then says that his father used to tell him that Wakanda was the most beautiful place in the world and that he was going to show it to him one day. Unsaid is that that will never happen now. Gracious in victory, T'Challa takes Eric back to the surface in time to see the sun setting. Eric says that Wakanda is indeed beautiful. T'Challa says there might be time to save him, and Eric responds with this.
Just bury me in the ocean with my ancestors that jumped from the ships. Because they knew death was better than bondage.
I have to admit, my first thought upon hearing this in the theater was, what the heck? If your ancestors committed suicide, then how are you even here? That you were ever even born? How does ancestors have kids if they committed suicide? I thought it was stupid at the time, and upon further thought, it really doesn't get much better. Let's say his ancestors had children before jumping, so they abandoned the kids to slavery and jumped? Sorry kids, you on your own. What heroes. Plus he's half Wakandan anyways, and they were never enslaved. So Eric pulls the spear out and dies as T'Challa looks on in sadness to what has become of the cousin he didn't know. T'Challa then takes up the mantle of king again, and he later visits with Nakia to thank her for saving his life and Wakanda. He asks her to stay with him again, that he has thought of something that she can do to answer her calling. We then cut to T'Challa and Shuri in Oakland standing near the building in which their father killed their uncle. He tells her that he bought it and several other nearby buildings to build the very first ever Wakandan Outreach Center. Nakia will oversee the social outreach, and Shuri will be in charge of the science and information exchange. Shuri asks if he is serious, and he causes the royal transport to uncloak and land nearby where local kids see it and run over excitedly. The end. So there you go, folks, the second movie in my MCU Trilogy of Disappointment. Hope you enjoyed this. Iron Man 3 is coming eventually. Until next time.